And we are off. Georgette Gómez, how are we doing today?
Doing good. It's a little bit hot, but outside of that, it's good. Good
Yeah,
day.
yeah, we're gonna be hitting a heat wave, I guess, for a few days, but we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody who you are, and we'll jump right in.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Brian. My name is Georgette Gómez. I'm the council president for the city of San Diego, council representative of District 9 for the city of San Diego, which is the mid city area, City Heights, where San Diego State is, the college area. So, all of that mid city area is the area that I cover and have the responsibility to ensure that we are addressing people's quality of life issues. And I'm sure we'll talk about all of that. But yeah, San Diego native.
Ah,
Um,
okay, that's what I was
yes,
gonna ask you.
yes,
Awesome.
San Diego native, born in Barrio Logan, and left Logan Heights area maybe in 2007 is when I left. I came to City Heights, so not too far, five miles from here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm a, I love San Diego. It's a beautiful
So,
place.
so you've really been plugged into San Diego over the years. So, from when you were younger to where you are now, how have you seen the city change?
Well, it all depends, right? It definitely has changed. It's grown. There's more people in it. Um, I think one of the biggest things that I see kind of the evolution is just the overall cost of living in San Diego getting more expensive, pushing a lot of the working families out of the city, which is a concern to me. It definitely seen a lot of that shift, and I get to, and I mean, there's good and bad, right? It's some communities that even the community that I was born in, Barrio Logan, you go there now, you don't recognize it. There's been a lot of, I have my dog right here, so there's going to be some sounds.
Prancing around, it sounded like.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of transformation of a lot of the older communities that were that one would call underserved communities, not paid attention. Now they're getting more attention. Logan Heights is one of them. City Heights is one of those communities as well. So transformation, is it for the better or the worse? It all depends on who you're asking, but definitely have seen a lot of changes. Um, but the major concern for me within those changes is that we're pushing, like I said, the communities that make the working class out of the city, which is concerning to me.
Yeah, yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So growing up, what was it like for you? You come from a small family, big family. Like, what did you guys get into?
Yeah, growing up, I have a brother and a sister, so we're three children, mom and dad. And at times my dad was in Mexico or doing other stuff, so grew up with my mom present, my dad at times. It was good. I mean, we grew up pretty poor. Minimum wage jobs, multiple jobs. My mom had to have to try to make ends meet. So she made the best. I didn't know any better. I thought life was like that. So it wasn't like I was comparing it to anybody else. I just thought we were a tight family. I'm the youngest of two. So I grew up following my brother and my sister, wanting to do the things that they would do. Obviously, as a young one, at times you get in trouble for that. But you just want to follow your sister and your brother and want to do exactly what they're doing, and it would get me in trouble. But I like I said, I grew up in Barrio Logan, Logan Heights area, and I loved my community. It was very family oriented. You see a lot of life in the streets, the kids playing around, a very community focused. So I had a really good life overall.
Nice. What kind of trouble
Yeah.
you getting in as a kid?
Yes.
Now, what I was at, what kind of trouble you getting in as a kid?
Oh, what kind of trouble? Sorry, I couldn't hear. Um, just I mean, I very energetic kid. I love my bicycle. Was like my freedom. You put me on the bike, and it's just like you won't see me until sunset. So as soon as I learned to ride, which I learned early in my life, but it was, it was what that's one of the other thing, right? That I learned because my brother and my sister were biking, and I wanted to bike with them. So I learned painfully, but I eventually I caught on, and then it was just, it was my freedom, and I still feel the same when I get on the bike. It's one of those moments when, I don't know, there's something about it that life becomes more at peace.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm feeling the city, the movement of people, the energy that the neighborhoods have. You can feel it more. So I really, for me, biking is a form of just relief and my peaceful moments. Um, I would climb a lot of trees and fall quite a bit, so I did a lot of hurting of my bones. Never broke a single bone though, but definitely at one point we had a parking lot near the house where there was this gate that would go move back and forth.
Mhm.
So as a kid, you would hang on, and somebody else would push it. There was a moment when I did that and my finger got caught on the rail, and it was a hot mess with a lot of blood, and very, very painful. I still have a scar. I kind of cut the finger in half, but I still have a little bit of a scar of that. So, but I cried a lot, obviously, but I wasn't afraid of doing things like that. It was just kind of like, I guess it's because you see your brother and your sister, and they do more things that you're able to do, and you just think, okay, I can do that. So I just went for it, and I've always been like that since a little kid. And I guess that's just the nature of growing up the youngest,
Yeah,
being challenged by your brother and your sister. So
yeah,
live life. I had a really fun childhood. It was a lot of playing for sure.
nice. Yeah, I had a few childhood friends, like some of my best friends growing up that lived across the street from me. And the youngest was my best friend growing up, and he had an older brother and sister. And yeah, you were hearing you talk, it was bringing up some nostalgia because the whole bike thing is just like you have to get home before a certain time or else you're going to get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And you're just pedaling as fast as you can. But yeah, seeing that influence from the other people that are around you. What made you want to get on the path, whether that be when you were younger or started to get older, uh, to actually work for the city, or is this something that just developed over time?
Well, I've always been, see, I grew up pretty poor. Like I said, my mom worked multiple jobs, and some of her bosses would be pretty abusive. And it was because my parents were undocumented. So they definitely flashed that. So they had to kind of bite their tongue and just do the work, or else they would get threatened that, that they would report them. And I saw that, and I just saw how my parents just like worked, and you couldn't ever get out of that, and that pressure at the end of the month of how are we going to pay, and just living under those conditions really stuck in my head. There was a point in life where we couldn't afford a home. We had to go move to with another family that was a pretty big family. It was a small house, so they were kind enough to open the doors to my family, a family of five. Our, I don't know how long we did that, but parents do what they need to do to provide a safe space for their kids. So that was the best option. But growing up, having my home be the living room for an entire family of five, and just growing up, so moments like that just kept, adding up. And, I mentioned that we grew up with little resources. That definitely created also my dad, which is a classic thing, leading to alcoholism, domestic violence was present. So just putting one after another and just seeing those conditions, being bused out of my neighborhood to a more wealthy and affluent community also opens your eyes. And not knowing, just you can just when the parks are not surrounded by freeways, when a grocery store is an actual grocery store, not a liquor store. So eventually, just seeing those differences, growing up in the environment that I grew up, and just continue to push on to learn, because my mom was very much about education. It's just like she's like, you three are gonna get your education if it's like the last thing I do. So I went to college. In high school, because being the youngest one in the family, my brother and sister were already going to college. My brother went to community college. My sister went to San Diego State. So they would, expose me to that. My brother decided to get pretty active in community college. And at the time when he entered community college, I believe Pete Wilson was the governor of California. And he was not kind to immigrant people. He was very, in my eyes, not a good governor for people of color, especially immigrants. So he put out there a measure that voters voted on to basically eliminate support to immigrant community members. If you had a community member that was undocumented, but another that it isn't, you couldn't get support. Or he also went against trying to eliminate bilingual education later on. So just very targeting the communities of the immigrant communities. And there was a proposition 187 that really kind of ignited the folks that are tied to being an immigrant. So my brother was very involved in trying to defeat this very hateful proposition. I got involved. I was in high school, but I got involved and started to learn kind of like the power that government has on people's lives, which is something that sometimes we take for granted. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes as to why government is the way that it is, dismissive and of real responsibilities. But so that was kind of like my first entry point. And then just graduated from high school. I went to San Diego State, and there I got more involved. And I just and and the reason that I went to college was I actually wanted to become a planner, to influence how communities of color that are a home to low income community members like Barrio Logan, how I can influence the development of it to have it be more healthier, but also allow for stronger, we make reference like, creating stronger bridges that could lead to the people living there to be able to succeed and get out of the hustle mentality, right? And how we shape and build communities really have a lot of influence on how people succeed. So to me, I I went to school to be able to do that. In my head, I was going to be a planner. I was going to be a developer, but focus in low income communities and try to do something better. That was kind of like what I wanted to do. So I graduated. I actually did some crisis counseling. And in college, like I said, I was very involved. I was the president of a club that worked on environmental justice issues, both for the campus, and we linked up with efforts to try to prevent a waste disposal site to be sited in Native American sacred land. So we were working on trying to prevent that from getting sited. So I did a lot of work like that. So I eventually graduated. When I graduated, I became a crisis counselor to help out domestic abuse survivors as well as sexual assault survivors. So I did that for a while. And that goes back to kind of like because of the environment that I was living in, I really wanted to be able to be of a resource to folks that needed support, that wanted to get out, or that went through difficult situations like sexual assault. So I became a crisis counselor. And then I eventually wanted to go back to Barrio Logan to do work there. So I ended up getting hired as a community organizer with this nonprofit organization called Environmental Health Coalition. And they were doing work in Barrio Logan, Logan Heights area. And I figured, perfect, that's gonna, lead me to working there. It's gonna allow me to get paid to do what I wanna do. And I was hired. I became an organizer with the organization and then started getting more responsibilities, started working on policy advocacy. So I did a lot of advocacy, and it's what we call lobbying decision makers, trying to influence them to do the right thing for low income community members or neighborhoods in addressing environmental justice. So that started getting to get more involved in influencing decision makers. And then that also led me to getting involved in electing decision makers, because I just saw that who we elect really, really matters if we want to start transforming or rebuilding a different way of living and being more responsive to all of us. So I started getting more involved in that. And then just over the years, I did that work for more than a decade. And then I started getting very, also during that period, I started getting very involved in community, just, was on boards, part of boards for nonprofits, became part of the government has these planning groups that gives guidance to city electeds on projects that are wanting to come into communities. So I was part of that as well. I worked with other nonprofits outside of the actual organization that I was working with. So, just very, very involved throughout my entire life. Really just, my commitment has always been, how can we do better where we are addressing everybody's quality of life? How can we create opportunities at an equal or even more in certain communities that have less resources? How can we put more there because they need more support? So just trying to address social justice in these different ways of getting involved. Never really wanting to be an elected. I was always a critic of government, and I still am. Even though I'm part of it, I'm very much mindful where the gaps are, and the fact that we do need to elect people that are coming from that lens, from the community's lens, not a political or a stepping stone to continue a political career. Um, so eventually, doing all this work with community, I just started in getting people elected, and then you get the disappointment. I just started thinking about it, okay, how can I do this work better? You know, I always think about that. Okay, how can we do this better? How can we do it faster, better, real systemic change? So eventually the representative for District 9, Marty Emerald, made an announcement that she wasn't going to seek re-election. And people were calling me, you should think about running. But I never thought of myself there. I always thought of myself, I'm the outsider pushing the inside to do the right thing. I always saw myself in that role. That was like the role that I saw, right? And then there was a moment in time when I was getting, these questions posed, and really folks saying you should do it, you should do it. I thought about it. Why not? And what is it that is keeping me from saying yes, right?
Mhm.
And so I made an intentional decision to really give it some thought and make the decision that, okay, I'm gonna do this. But I always knew why I was doing it. It wasn't so much because I wanted to be a council member. It was more about wanting to go in there to try to figure out how do you push that system to do better for communities that are not getting the attention. And we're creating communities that, there's violence for a reason. It's
Yeah.
not an accident.
Right.
There's poverty for a reason. It's just like, the health conditions of these community members are worse than an affluent community. And it's designed in such way. So I went in there. I mean, I ran for that purpose, to bring a different perspective, but I also knew that, creating systemic change you're in it for a long haul. It doesn't happen overnight. I am very, very patient, but I truly do believe that, you know, I do believe that we can dismantle and rebuild. It's just going to take time and electing the right people and continue pushing forward. So I ran under those reasons, and I wasn't supposed to win. My opponent was the chief of staff, and if you know politics, normally is like the person that gets appointed by the outgoing elected wins. So I was going against the chief of staff of the outgoing representative for this district. He was very well funded. He was the chief of staff for, I think, for 2 years. So within those 2 years, he was working his campaign already. He was like building the relationships with the people intentionally, like he did it intentional.
Yeah.
So
Like, I got this head start. I'm gonna.
yeah, so I knew what I was going against, and I knew that, you do it for the right reasons. You bring the right people. I didn't raise the money that to match them. I was outspent 3 to 1. And there was some independent expenditure packs for him that the police put up, I think, over $300,000 to try to defeat me, if not more. So there was like all this massive amount of money being spent against me to try to prevent me from winning. But what I had was just decades of doing community work, community related. Like the people knew me, right? The people knew why I was doing this. It wasn't about self gratification or believing that I can be the savior. It was just kind of like this is about just continuing doing the work inside and seeing if it can work,
Yeah.
and just having that opportunity. So people came, did a strong grassroots campaign, and one that led to winning the election. So now I'm there. I'm the council representative. I happen to be the council president. I also didn't think that I was ever going to be the council president. It's wild. This is like a wild ride. that really has, it's been interesting. It's been interesting.
Well, frankly, it's refreshing to hear you say that, to hear somebody coming at it from a place of wanting, of actually seeing stuff that they want to change and coming from a place of service. Because
Yeah.
I definitely am on the same page as you for the longest time. Well, same page previously, but for like the longest time, I would see anything government related, and I would just be like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, no, no, I don't want to get involved in that. It just feels gross." But then over time, you realize that the lack of involvement is getting a lot of people in there that just don't give a shit.
Right.
That are really just concerned about their campaign instead of making lasting change that is going to positively affect people.
Right. Right.
Um, and one of the things that I really did want to chat with you about, I'm glad you brought it up, is environmental impacts, because I know a lot of environmental issues affect low income communities more than other communities, like more affluent communities. And I was wondering if you could expand upon that a little bit to talk about like some of the ways that environmental impacts really decimate low income communities.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, I literally have dedicated my life in addressing environmental justice.
Uh-huh.
And that really is tied to land use decisions that government has made, that leads to creating some communities to allow uses that normally you wouldn't want to have as a neighbor, such as a power plant, or such as when we so-called are done with their vehicles, you have these yards that are crushing these metal vehicles, right? Think about it. When they're being crushed, it's loud. It releases fumes because of the pain, because of the gas that it had, because of the oils. So it's very dangerous. These types of uses have been cited in low income communities over the years, or sometimes, like in Barrio Logan, you had all of the above. You had, auto body shops, you had recycling centers, you have two different freeways that gutted the community. One goes above it, the other one goes next to it. And then on the water side is industrial uses, right? In the water side, you have industrial uses. On the east side of it, you have Freeway 5. Above it, you have Coronado. Inside the community, you have these heavy industrial uses, every other house. And that really creates a concentration of industries that are not healthy. If you think about it, just a concentration of fumes, a concentration of dangerous chemicals that can explode anytime. These businesses require, major trucks to deliver their services, whatever they need. So you have these diesel trucks coming in daily, right? And every 30 minutes, you have these massive things that are coming in. Um, so, and this is just to describe one community. There's like other communities in LA, you have like a community that has this massive industrial power plant, the Segundo. If you ever drive on the 5, you see this like massive, you can smell it when you go through it. So this is like, and normally these types of businesses, these types of operations are constantly, there's not an, I don't think there's, I haven't done a thorough national analysis, but I can tell you for, most of these types of uses are cited in low income communities, communities of color. So that's where the environmental justice movement begins, in addressing these issues and saying enough is enough. If and we get it that they need to operate because we're dependent on them, but at the same time, they shouldn't just be concentrated in low-income communities, and mainly communities of color. So they should be separated, or if they need to be where people live, let's put them everywhere, not just in one single community, right? Let's spread them. So that's what environmental justice is about: is addressing that inequity of concentration of industries that end up harming your health, end up harming the quality of life, of the conditions of your community. There's this saying in the EJ movement that, if you give the zip code in which you grew up in, there is a calculation that would determine how long you will live, right? And that is interesting to say that, because that shouldn't be. It should be, and the reason being is because you can calculate the resources that are available to you. You can calculate the type of quality of food that is available to you. I made reference earlier that my grocery store was a liquor store.
Yeah.
That's real. That was true. We don't have as many communities like that anymore, but still, even some of the grocery stores or the small markets that we have in these communities don't have healthy food accessibility, right? We have become a nation, a fast food nation, where it's more expensive to buy a salad than buy a Big Mac, right?
Insane.
And so, and for the most part, I mean, when you're poor, you're counting those pennies, and you have, 2 children, 5 children to feed. You're gonna go to the whatever's available, right? So the conditions that what you consume, if you're breathing already polluted air, you're consuming bad quality of food. So it's just kind of like these, these things that keep on adding on and piling to at the end of the day, you end up, dying sooner because of all of that, because of the concentration of everything that has been, that you've been exposed to, and inhale as well. So EJ, it really is, the environmental justice movement is about really addressing all of these different, not only just air quality, but also what's in your community, making sure that even the home that you're living in, because a lot of these, there was a point in our lives where we were using lead in paint, and some of these older homes are still up, and people are living in them. Happens to be that our low-income community members live in these homes, and they're getting exposed to lead. Children get impacted the most in terms of their brain development. So, talking about making sure that we're building healthy homes, that we're building full communities that are providing full access to healthcare, to healthy food, clean water, clean air. And so that is what the environmental justice movement is all about, is creating toxic free neighborhoods that are fully stocked with the right things and not the bad things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so horrible that on top of struggling from like a socioeconomic status, that you'd have, you're born into a place where your shelf life is different than others, just
Yeah.
because of the chemicals and the circumstances and the businesses, and like you're saying, like the food deserts, like it's just, yeah, a lot to change, a lot to switch around and improve. Um, but one of the things, because I know we're gonna have to cut this off sooner than later. But being in San Diego, I feel like there is a unique relationship here with immigration, because there are, well, at least pre-COVID, there were a lot of people that some that I had worked with in the past that, would lived in Tijuana for everybody else, that would commute into San Diego and do their work and then go home. And, the situation you were describing to me, because this is something that really irks me anytime I hear somebody like outside of any knowledge around immigration or living around an area that has immigration points that get brought up, as they want to act like there's no value being exchanged here, when it's like one of the ways this shit runs. And when you see that on the really dark side of it, people in affluent areas are taking advantage again of people that are in lower socioeconomic status, and with your personal example of your parents, and it's just creating this horrible environment where it's just like certain populations think that immigrants are like evil and coming over here to like take jobs and everything, but really it's like the majority of the time they're being exploited.
Right. No, yeah, and the majority is it's exploited. They don't get the benefits. They're
Right.
exploited, and they don't get the pay that they deserve.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, even under COVID, essential workers were farm workers. Essential workers were the people that were keeping our grocery stores operating, right?
Yeah.
And those for the majority, I mean, historically, data-wise, those are immigrant uh, people keeping those industries alive. Um, so, I mean, the narrative about immigration, immigrant people coming here, and how they're taking away these jobs that normally nobody wants because they're heavy jobs, and they come with very little benefits and very little pay. I mean, to think about working 8 hours, if not more, having to be kneeled down in the scorching sun, right? Not something that I know that I wouldn't want to do myself. And both my mom and dad had to do that at one point. But that's just a reality, and the fact that we as a nation don't want to recognize the value of addressing immigration reform, so there really is a safer path, and create a more humane way of treating people, instead of the way that we have politicized undocumented community members. And it's really sad to see, and still very much it's political. It's
Yeah.
not because there's no value. There's definitely value. We are seeing it firsthand right now. Um, they do not cost this nation money, because I mean, at a personal level, I can tell you that my parents, they were paying taxes. They weren't getting any penny. I mean, they weren't getting any assistance by the government because they were afraid. They were afraid to be um, to cost, and this is a lot the mentality that a lot of folks that have no documentation. I mean, they want to stay under the radar. They want to do their work, be able to bring home their paycheck to address their needs, and they don't want to cause any trouble, and they're not trying to live off of the government if they can avoid it. Hard workers. It's just, I mean, at least, everybody that I know that I have come in contact with, including my mom, my brother, my sister, my dad, um, you know, hard workers. And they never ask for a single penny. And that really is the reality of a lot of undocumented community members. They just come here because they want to be able to provide something better for that person that is dependent on them, or for themselves, or they're just trying to leave a dangerous situation. So they come here with the intent of wanting to survive. And we just, it's very irresponsible for any elected to politicize an issue that people are very much are are asking for validity, to say, hey, we're here, we're part of this nation in one way or another. We are giving, we are providing something. Why not recognize us? It really baffles me. It's mind blowing to me, just because I don't see that. What Trump has done is he's created this narrative of it's the bad people, it's the dangerous people, but there's no proof to any of that. There's as many bad people documented that they're undocumented. So it's just kind of like to play off of that narrative. It's just it is what it is. It's racist and hateful, and we should definitely push back against that, and work really hard to validate the people that are working hard to provide food for us. It's just the bottom line.
Yeah, because yeah, I've personally worked with undocumented immigrants, and
Mhm.
they're not all rapists and murderers. Like the shit, like it's so crazy to me that one guy can use one line, and now this is the thing that's accepted by a bunch of people that don't even live in an area where they would really be where that would even be an issue. And
Right.
to your point, it's like there are literally bad people in every single community, every single
Mhm.
job, every single country, every single city. Like there
Right.
is a subset of people. It doesn't matter. It's humanity. Like
Right.
humans, there's going to be some of us that are not good people.
Right. No, yeah. Got some work to do, and really, I think one of the things that this overall our society hasn't really unpacked and have real conversations is just the systemic racism that it was built upon, right?
Yeah.
You always have used somebody else to build the next evolution, whether it be the rail, whether it be the downtown San Diego, build, whatever it is, there's just that premise that we really haven't uh, recognized that there's 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 some bad history, and there's that history is based on oppression, utilizing the work of a certain race to advance to of our society, and we haven't recognized that. I mean, African American, they were brought here not willingly, right? Our Native Americans, they were placed in reservations. So the history of Chinese, the Japanese, the Vietnamese, it's just constantly it just and I think one of the things that we haven't done as a society, and I mean a holistic society, is just recognize that we've been putting it under the rug, and just we're better. We're like better, right? We're better than them. And I think right now COVID is putting so much pressure that it really is bubbling even more, in terms of the necessity of having this race conversation of how racist this country has built upon. And immigration, addressing our undocumented residents is one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
Lots to get into. We might have to do another one of these just on
Yeah, we've done a lot.
that. Well, yeah. So we are coming up on our stopping time here, but I guess to kind of round this thing out, I really see the advantage of this current time being with a lot of stuff being shut down and sports like being different. A lot of the normal entertainment that we have is not around. And I think over the years, entertainment has kind of served as a distraction for us. Um, but what can people do, at least here in San Diego, to get more involved, to get more educated, to get more aware of what's going on so that they actually can make a difference? Because, I think, you know, we get to see everything on a global scale now. And when you see what's going on around the world, and a lot of times it's bad shit because that's what trends, then it's so much overwhelm that it's like so many people want to do something, but it's like so much overwhelm that you just shell up and do nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like, what can people do, like to feel a little bit of that hope, like they are becoming a part of something?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of great groups that are trying to do the right thing. It depends on where people are at, what type of issues people are interested. I mean, there's nonprofits that are working on addressing the climate crisis. There's others that are trying to address improving of transit, or folks that are addressing the housing crisis. Government does welcome public participation. You can always look at the website, and we're constantly, reminding people, hey, this is what's going to be discussed during council. If you're interested, engage. So people can follow me, or email my office, Georgette Gómez at sandiego.gov. You can also look me up. I have a page, a Twitter, very, very active in social media. There's different ways, and there's just tons of organizations out there, folks that are working on addressing immigration reform, folks that are trying to uplift and create a better path for our refugee community. You know, there's no shortage of groups that are doing the good work on trying to advocate and address a lot of the issues. And there's always hope. I mean, I started with, not wanting to be a government elected, and now I am, and I'm trying to maximize that space that I have and that privilege. But, I'm constantly, I hit I hit my head on the wall because it's frustrating, and I get that frustration. But it's still it's worth it, because we are, even if it might be that inch that moves forward, then that's something that we didn't have before. So we just have to keep, inch by inch moving forward, and eventually it is the system that we're very proud of, that is more addressing all these different society issues that haven't been addressed. But it's just a matter of wanting and believing and not letting go of that, and figuring out, how do you do it? What's the best approach for me? Some people get entrenched, and some people run for office. If that's something that you want to do, want to talk about it, reach out. I'm more than happy to talk about it. Some people get involved in nonprofits, and as volunteers, so they end up working for them. Or some people end up getting appointed to boards, to help out even further. Or some folks, it's just, there's like a plethora of ways of getting involved. It's just a matter of finding out which way. And there's not a right or wrong. It's just a matter of utilizing that energy for of a positive outcome. So
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
So is your path being dragged along, kicking and screaming, taking you anywhere in the future that you got on the horizon, or are you basically just concentrating on where you're at right now?
Well, I am in the path of trying to get to Congress.
Hey, nice.
Yes, no, it's one of those, when we began this conversation, I said that, I ran with a different mentality, and and I decided to run for Congress when I could have just taken it safe and run for reelection, which is, that was another path for me. That would have been very easy. But for me, now, having been exposed to local government and seeing the where we're short, I want to take the fight to a higher level, and so now I'm in the path of, in the middle of campaigning for Congress while I'm still the council president during this pandemic. I can tell you that I might, at a personal level, being, this is the most I've ever been challenged at the personal level, but all of it is worth it. It's I'm determined to achieve social justice in this society, and now the path is taking me to, hoping that it takes me to Congress to, bring this voice to DC.
I love it. I love somebody that has ties to the community, and has stuff that they're bringing from their life that they want to influence. So I appreciate you doing what you're doing, because again, I'm going to use the word again, it's refreshing to see somebody that actually seems like they give a shit. It's like so much, we see this on the news all the time, and it's just, you see no answers, no ideas, no focus on moving forward. So yeah, thank you for taking some time out today to do this, and yeah,
Happy to do it again. Yeah.
awesome. Well, we are going to get out of here, people. Hope you enjoyed it. Sweet.